The day before I was set to marry Sophie, her greatest business rival, Adrian, died in a car crash. That was the moment I discovered her secret, a deep and intense love for him that she had hidden from everyone, including me. At the scene of the accident, she knelt on the pavement, holding him in her arms and sobbing as if her world had ended. To make up for all the time she felt she had lost with him, she postponed our wedding indefinitely and took his ashes with her on a trip around the world. After a year of traveling, she finally found a sense of peace and returned, ready to settle down and go through with our marriage. It was only after she came back that she learned about the other body at the crash site, the one that no one had given a second glance. That other body was mine. I had come back from a business trip that day, and the accident happened right in front of Sophie's office building. The noon sun felt strangely weak and cold on my skin, as I seemed to float in the middle of the road, staring blankly at the scene before me. Sophie was on her knees, wailing with a grief so profound it seemed to shake her whole body. Her eyes were bloodshot as she cupped Adrian's face in her hands, her own expression a mask of pure devastation and despair. I looked down at Sophie, at her beautiful profile, and a dense, sharp pain spread through my chest. The man she was holding with such tenderness was not me. It was her long-time nemesis, Adrian. In their professional lives, they were fierce adversaries, and in private, they constantly looked for ways to undermine each other. Whenever Sophie even mentioned his name, she would frown with a look of genuine disgust. But now, she was clinging to him like a lost child, burying her face in his neck as her quiet whimpers revealed a secret, gut-wrenching love. "Adrian, wake up. Open your eyes and look at me. I'll never fight with you again," she cried, her voice cracking. "Don't scare me like this. Please, just wake up." A bitter and confusing feeling churned inside me. I looked helplessly from her to Adrian. Sophie had wiped the blood from his face, and she held him so carefully, so gently, that he almost looked like he was just peacefully sleeping. Meanwhile, I was lying just a few feet away, twisted and broken like a discarded doll. The corner of my white shirt, a gift from her, was flipped up by the wind, an undignified sight for everyone to see. And yet, from the beginning of this whole nightmare to the end, my fiancée never once looked in my direction. She didn't notice me lying right there, not even when the engagement ring on my finger caught the sun and cast a blinding reflection. Her eyes only had room for Adrian. When the paramedics arrived, they looked at my body with pity before covering me with a white sheet and quickly lifting me onto a stretcher. As they carried me past Sophie, she suddenly looked up, and for a frozen moment, I thought she had finally recognized me. But in the next second, she scooped Adrian into her arms, rushed forward, and physically shoved my stretcher out of her way. She dropped to her knees in front of the paramedics, her voice desperate. "Doctor, please, I'm begging you, save him." To most people who knew her, Sophie was a cool and elegant woman who rarely showed her emotions. Even with me, she was always somewhat reserved. In our most intimate moments, she would only whisper hoarsely in my ear, calling me a good boy in short, fragmented breaths. But now, for Adrian, the man who had stolen countless business deals from her, she was on her knees in public, sobbing without any regard for her dignity. I studied her face. Her features that always seemed so perfectly composed were now shattered, twisted with a raw and intense emotion that made her look like a stranger. It was then that I finally understood. It wasn't that she was incapable of expressing her feelings. It was just that all her strong emotions, her disgust, her anger, and her love, were all reserved for Adrian. In that instant, the love I thought we shared, a love I believed was bone deep, simply vanished. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I backed away, no longer wanting to see her face. My attention was suddenly caught by a phone with a shattered screen lying on the pavement. It had a simple black case and a metal charm. It was Adrian's. The screen was still lit up, open to his text conversation with Sophie. The last 2 messages were from her. The first one read, "I'm getting married." Adrian's reply was simple. "Wait for me." In that moment, the memories of how I died came flooding back. I hadn't told Sophie that I was coming back from my trip early. As soon as my plane landed, I went straight to her office, hoping to surprise her. I remembered how she had leaned against the doorframe just before I left, her voice soft and tender as she told me she'd miss me, and that she would marry me the moment I returned. The thought had made me walk faster, more eager to see her. But then, I ran into Adrian downstairs from her building. He was holding his phone, and his tone was dismissive, with a poorly hidden contempt in his eyes. "See that clearly, Liam? If I don't give my approval, this wedding of yours isn't going to happen. She hates me, but she loves me more. I'm the one who is her equal." With that, he looked me up and down, taking in my travel-worn clothes, a slight smirk playing on his lips. "I hope you have enough self-awareness to back out on your own. I'd rather not have to get my hands dirty." I slapped him hard across the face. I don't remember much of what happened after that, just a few scattered images, a van swerving out of control, the sound of people screaming, and the sight of Sophie stumbling as she ran, not toward me, but toward Adrian. For some reason, my spirit can't seem to stray too far from Sophie. I followed her to the hospital, only to watch as Adrian's family kicked her out of his room. When she got back to her apartment, she locked herself inside, turned off her phone, and curled up on the sofa, drinking until she passed out. She always used to say that alcohol damages the brain, and hadn't touched a drop of it, not even at our engagement party. But now, she drank day and night, as if she were trying to drink herself to death so she could join Adrian. On the 4th day, our friend Mark broke down the door with his assistant, Ben. Without saying a word, he walked over and punched her. "Sophie, I know you're in pain, but you have to get yourself together today. Are you seriously not going to his funeral?" The force of the blow snapped Sophie's head to the side. Her messy hair fell across her forehead, making her look completely worn out. She let out a small, bitter laugh. "Mark, I regret it. I should have listened to my heart sooner. When Adrian was alive, I was always fighting with him. He never even knew that I loved him." Mark just stared at her. "Adrian? Not Liam?" Hearing my name, Sophie froze for a second. She closed her eyes and rubbed her temples, looking annoyed. Her voice was raspy from the alcohol. "Did he send you? Adrian is dead. What's his problem trying to pick a fight with a dead man? It's not like I won't marry him. The wedding is just postponed for a while. Tell him to stop being so dramatic." I rested my chin on my hand and just stared at her. There wasn't a single trace of guilt in her dark eyes. Of course, she didn't know that I was dead too. The assistant, Ben, opened his mouth to say something, but Mark stopped him with a raised hand. He looked down at Sophie for a long moment, then sneered. "Fine. Since you've made your decision, I'll talk to him when he gets back from his trip. I hope you don't regret this." With that, he turned and left, the hesitant assistant following close behind him. I followed them out to the stairwell and heard Ben ask cautiously, "Aren't we going to tell Ms. Vance about Liam?" Mark paused, his voice hoarse and weary. "I'll handle his arrangements. Don't tell Sophie yet. She can't take it right now. And more importantly," he added, "Liam probably doesn't want to see her anyway." I leaned against the door frame, watching Mark's reddened eyes, and gave a bitter smile. The 3 of us had grown up together in an orphanage and went to the same college. After we graduated, we started our company together. Back then, Sophie and I lived in a tiny, cramped basement apartment. I remember she'd come home from a networking dinner, see me eating instant ramen, and just pull me into a hug, her heart aching for me. She swore that she would never let me down, and that she would give me a happy home. In those days, her biggest dream was to marry me and have a huge celebration. Now, she lives in a spacious apartment downtown, and her biggest problem seems to be how to get rid of me. 3 days later, I still hadn't found a way to leave Sophie's side. But she, uncharacteristically, had cleaned herself up and left the apartment. Confused, I followed her until she knelt in front of Adrian's family mansion. Then I understood. She wanted Adrian's ashes. Even though I thought I was prepared for it, my heart instinctively clenched in pain. A full week had passed. She hadn't once wondered why I wasn't back yet, or if I might be in some kind of danger. Instead, she was kneeling at her rival's family home, begging for his remains. Adrian's family was only concerned with business. They didn't seem to care that one of their less important sons had died. They just wanted to squeeze every last drop of value out of the situation. They offered to trade Adrian's ashes for the most important project I had under my control. I had worked on that project for months, pulling all-nighters, drinking with clients until I nearly threw up, and even ending up on an IV drip for 3 days just to land the deal. At the time, Sophie had even lost her temper with me, a rare sight, telling me that I wasn't taking care of myself properly. But now, she agreed to their terms without a moment's hesitation. Beyond the heartache, I felt a deep pang of regret. All of my hard work, everything I did for our future, had just become a stepping stone for her to pursue her feelings for Adrian. The urn was brought out by Adrian's half-sister, Claire. Sophie took it, her hands trembling. She looked down, her dark lashes casting a faint shadow on her pale face as a single tear escaped from the corner of her reddened eye. "Thank you," she said, her hoarse voice dissolving in the wind. In that moment, the last spark of love I had for her died out. After leaving the mansion, Sophie headed straight for the airport. On the way, she got a call from Mark. His voice on the other end was frantic and slightly distorted. "Ben said you booked a ticket for a round-the-world cruise. You're leaving today? Sophie, are you insane?" Sophie silently held the phone away from her ear, clutching the urn tightly to her chest as a soft tenderness bloomed in her dark eyes. "Yes," she said with a faint smile. "Adrian and I missed so many years together. I don't want any more regrets. I want to love him purely and completely for 1 year. As for Liam, let's just postpone the wedding." Mark was silent for a long moment. Then he finally roared, unable to hold back any longer. "You still have the nerve to mention Liam? Liam is dead. He died right in front of you." Sophie lowered her eyes and sighed softly. "Mark, why are you playing along with his games? I haven't left the house these past few days. How could he have died in front of me? Don't make tasteless jokes like that again." Mark laughed, a sound completely devoid of humor. "I'm not joking. If you don't believe me, that's enough, Mark. Nothing you say will make me come back," Sophie cut in, her voice firm. "With you and Liam at the company, I'm not worried." Her tone was calm and resolute. "You only live once. Just let me be selfish this one time." With that, she hung up, promptly removed the SIM card from her phone, and snapped it in two. I stared at the dark screen, picturing Mark's furious face. With his temper, I was worried about him running the company alone. He always had a short fuse, even back in school. I remember when I got first place on our first monthly exam in our senior year of high school. I came to class the next day to find my desk stuffed with trash and the word cheater carved into the tabletop. Before I could even react, Mark threw down his backpack in a rage, grabbed the student responsible by the collar, and dragged him out of the classroom. Sophie had quietly gotten me a cup of hot water, cleaned my desk bit by bit, and then went to the teacher to get the security footage. I didn't have to do anything but continue to get first place, again and again. Thinking back, that's how we always operated. Mark was the enforcer. Sophie was the strategist, and I held down the fort. The three of us were indispensable to one another. And now, Mark had lost both of his partners at once. I was worried about him. Sophie, however, had no such concerns. After her flight landed, she even had the presence of mind to buy Adrian a more exquisite urn. It was made of black obsidian with simple, elegant patterns carved into it. It was understated and reserved, the complete opposite of Adrian's flamboyant personality. I remembered the first time I saw Adrian. The three of us had gone to a club for Mark's birthday. In the middle of the loud, chaotic dance floor, Adrian stood out, handsome and striking in a well-tailored burgundy suit. He stumbled drunkenly into Sophie's arms and looked up, their eyes meeting. Maybe it was the intoxicating atmosphere, but he shot me a provocative glance, then pulled Sophie's head toward his and kissed her. Sophie froze, her pupils shrinking. She shoved him away hard and took a few steps back. "Who is this lunatic?" she muttered, frowning at Adrian, who had fallen onto a pile of broken glass. Then she turned and took my hand. Her tone was disgusted, her expression cold, but I noticed a faint blush creeping up her ear. Adrian's hand was cut that night, leaving a scar. After that, he always wore gloves to formal events. Sophie probably felt guilty about it, which must be why she was now clutching a carving knife, ignoring her own scratched and bleeding fingers as she etched his name onto the new urn, stroke by stroke. "My beloved Adrian." 4 short words, mixed with blood and tears, heavy with belated guilt and love. I stood on the balcony of the cruise ship suite, the sea breeze on my face. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, casting flickering shadows across Sophie's face as she gently wiped the bloodstains from the urn. It reminded me of the day I first arrived at the orphanage, when she used her small hands to wipe away my tears and snot, then clumsily comforted me, saying, "Don't be afraid, Liam. I'll always protect you." Honestly, traveling the world with Sophie, apart from being emotionally nauseating, was a pretty good experience. I'd never been to such beautiful places. She would plan our itinerary days in advance, then take Adrian's ashes with her, diligently taking photos of the scenery and sometimes explaining the history of the places we visited. When curious onlookers asked, she would admit openly, "This is my partner." As for our engagement ring, she had casually given it away to a homeless street artist during the first leg of her journey, in exchange for an oil painting of her and Adrian embracing in the club that night. The trip went smoothly, but sometimes Sophie would just stare off at the distant lakes and mountains, completely lost in thought. We used to be so poor, with no time or money to travel. We would just dream about it, lying in our small rented room, fantasizing about all the places we would go. But when we finally had the money, we just got busier. She had said that for our honeymoon, we would go to Iceland to see the northern lights, and that when we were old, we'd retire somewhere quiet. But I never made it to the wedding, and I never got to grow old. It just goes to show that nothing is forever. Anyone can go their separate ways at any time. One day, months later, Sophie passed by a men's formal wear shop. Maybe it was the suit in the window that caught her eye, but for some reason, she stopped. I moved closer to get a better look. The suit was sharp, with clean-cut, smooth lines, exuding a quiet, noble air. It looked a lot like the one Sophie and I had tried on together for our wedding. Sophie stood silently in front of the window, a shimmering light in her eyes filled with longing and nostalgia. That night, she clutched her phone and sat by the hotel window, looking through our old photos for hours. From high school to college to the present, in almost every photo we took together, I was looking straight at the camera, and she was looking straight at me. One by one, the old photos swiped past on the screen. Finally, Sophie's finger stopped on my high school graduation picture. Her gaze seemed to cross through time, meeting the eyes of my 18-year-old self. The next second, as if she had been burned, she dropped the phone and anxiously rubbed her ring finger. But it was empty. She had traded the engagement ring for a painting long ago. I stood beside her, watching her coldly. What was she afraid of? Was she afraid of facing the 18-year-old me, whose eyes were filled with nothing but her? Or was she remembering how much she used to love me, afraid that she had made the wrong choice? It didn't matter anymore. I hadn't done anything wrong. What I should be reevaluating are my judgment and my choices, not my sincerity or my love. The next morning, for the first time on the trip, Sophie left without Adrian's ashes. She went to a jewelry store and ordered a new pair of matching rings. The design was called Rebirth. The saleswoman smiled and asked, "For your wedding? With your husband?" A corner of Sophie's mouth turned up, her eyes filled with a sense of peace and anticipation. "No," she said, "for a new beginning." That evening, she buried Adrian's ashes on a quiet island, murmuring to him all night. "I have to go. Liam is still waiting for me. I let him down once. I can't make the same mistake again. But I don't regret loving you. We weren't meant to be in this life. In the next one, we'll be together properly." After laying Adrian to rest, Sophie hurriedly booked a flight home. Upon landing, she went straight to the office. Her expression was calm on the surface, but her tense brow betrayed an undeniable excitement. That excitement, however, vanished completely after she searched the entire office and couldn't find me. She pushed open the door to Mark's office with a hint of impatience. I peeked over her shoulder at Mark. I hadn't seen him in a year. He was thinner, but he carried himself with a new, steady maturity. Seeing Sophie barge in so recklessly, he merely gave her a cool glance. "Where's Liam? Is he avoiding me?" Sophie's voice was soft, laced with exhaustion. Mark stared at her. After a moment, he let out a cold laugh. "Didn't I tell you already? He's dead. He died in the same crash as Adrian." Sophie froze. With a clatter, the ring box she was holding slipped from her hand. The afternoon sun was bright, glinting off the rolling rings, making one's eyes sting. As if a sudden thought struck her, she shot her head up, her face turning white as a sheet. "What did you say?" she asked, her voice raw and strained, as if she were forcing the words from her throat. Mark had lost his patience. He bent down, pulled a few papers from his safe, and threw them in her face. "He died with Adrian, right in front of you. Before he died, he was trying to crawl toward you, trying to ask you for help. Didn't you see him?" The sharp edge of a paper cut Sophie's skin. The force of the impact snapped her head to the side, and a trickle of blood appeared on her pale cheek. Her tall frame trembled for a moment as she stared blankly at the white papers fluttering down. It was my death certificate. "No. Impossible. This isn't him," she choked out, sinking to her knees and clutching her chest as she gasped for breath. I leaned in for a closer look. "It's a strange thing, seeing your own death certificate. A few short lines, sealing away my 27 years of life." Mark's eyes were icy, his voice tight with suppressed rage. "The day he came back from his trip, he went to the office to see you and happened to run into Adrian downstairs. A van lost control and hit them both. The brother I'd depended on for 20 years died just like that, right in front of you. And what were you doing at that moment? You were holding your precious arch-rival, crying and screaming for the doctors to save him. I handled his funeral all by myself. I was so worried you couldn't handle it that I didn't have the heart to tell you. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see Liam crying, telling me how much it hurt. But what did you do? You took off with your rival's ashes and just disappeared. Sophie, why wasn't it you who died that day? I looked at Mark, at his bloodshot eyes, and my heart ached for him. Now he was the only one I couldn't let go of. He had been abandoned by his parents as a child and had finally found a family to depend on. And now, he was alone again. Sophie's dark pupils trembled. The next second she began to cough violently, and a stream of blood trickled from the corner of her lips, staining her white shirt. She dazedly reached out, her fingers gently tracing the blood-smeared death certificate. Name of deceased: Liam. Sex: male. She had written my name countless times over the past 20 years, but now it was as if she didn't recognize the letters, her fingers tracing them over and over, stubbornly, disbelievingly. The bloodstain spread, blooming like a red rose on the white paper. Looking at Sophie clutching my death certificate, I felt a bitter sorrow. I wasn't heartbroken for her. I was mourning for the me who had once tried so hard to live. A wind squeezed through a narrow crack in the window, letting out a hoarse, muffled whine. Mark's patience ran out. He strode forward, grabbed her by the collar, and glared at her through gritted teeth. Who are you trying to disgust with this act? Don't pull this pathetic crap with me. Sophie gently pushed his hand away, raised her sleeve to wipe the blood from her lips, and looked at Mark calmly. Where are Liam's ashes? Her voice was raspy, her dark eyes holding a manic glint. He's still waiting for me to marry him. I still owe him a wedding. Let me see him. Mark took 2 steps back. In your dreams? Sophie closed her eyes in despair. After a long pause, she finally spoke, her voice choked with sobs. Mark, I was his family too. I'm begging you, just let me see him one last time. Mark sneered. Do you deserve to? The last thing Liam ever saw was you sobbing your heart out for another man. He'd be too busy hating you to ever want to see you. The color drained from Sophie's face. She was right. I didn't want to see her, but I didn't hate her that much. We had been through so much together for so many years. If not love, there was at least kinship. I just had regrets. I regretted all those days I had spent full of joy, wanting to build a life with her. Mark turned, opened the door, and called for his assistant. Ben, show her out, and don't let her in again. Ben hesitated for a moment before stepping forward to help Sophie up, but she remained motionless, as if she were already dead. Ben sighed. He stood up straight, his tone as respectful as ever, but his words were merciless. Ms. Vance, there's something you should know. Liam's business trip was originally supposed to last 2 weeks, but he worked overtime, day and night, just to be back for your birthday. He cut the project time down to a week just so he could surprise you. He never expected something like this to happen. He wasn't supposed to die. Sophie's head shot up, her bloodshot eyes fixed on Ben. What did you say? Ben ignored her and continued. Oh, right. He also used to leave me a letter every time he went on a trip, telling me to give them to you if anything ever happened to him. With that, he ran back to his desk and returned with a thick stack of envelopes. I remembered. Every time I traveled far, I would leave her a letter, a last will of sorts. It wasn't really a will, it was just for her peace of mind. Sophie's parents had died in an accident when she was 4 without leaving a single word, which left her with deep-seated trauma. At the orphanage, she was always terrified that the people around her would suddenly disappear. Once, I went on a short trip with the director. When I got back, she clung to me and cried all night, terrified that I had left for good and didn't want her anymore. She was crying so much I couldn't sleep, so I did what my grandmother used to do for me. I cradled her head and whispered, "Don't cry. I'm not leaving you." After that, it became a habit. For the next 20 years, whenever she woke up from a nightmare, I would hold her gently, stroking her hair, and tell her I was still there. Sophie's hands trembled as she eagerly tore open the envelopes. I leaned in to look. I'd forgotten what I'd written. I only remembered that the first sentence of every letter was, "I'm not leaving you." Scalding tears fell, one by one, blurring the words on the page. Sophie kept her head down, reading every word carefully. The rest was like a journal. Sometimes I'd remind her to take her medicine on time. Sometimes I'd tell her not to forget to throw out the old vegetables in the fridge. Sometimes I'd joke that I wanted a centaur to perform at my funeral. The last letter was the one I wrote before my final business trip. We had just decided to get married as soon as I got back, so I never thought anything would happen to me. I didn't leave a real will. I just wrote about my dreams for our wedding. I wanted Mark to wear a bridesmaid dress to surprise Sophie. I wanted to replace the bouquet with a cat toy, and whoever caught it would get to adopt a little orange kitten. I wanted to make Sophie wear a frog costume and dance with me. I wanted so many things. Too bad none of them could happen now. I had been safe on every other trip. Who would have thought I'd get into an accident right outside the office? Sophie pressed the letters tightly to her chest, her cries gut-wrenching, like a dying animal. "Liam, Liam." She trembled uncontrollably, sobbing until she lost her voice. "Liam, come back. I was wrong. I was so wrong." It seemed that only now did she truly understand what she had lost. I crouched in front of her, studying her agonized face. Just like old times, I gently patted her on the head. My hand passed right, through her hair, leaving no trace. I pulled my hand back, disappointed. Even though she couldn't hear me, I still wanted to say it. "Sophie, this time, I'm the one who doesn't want you." Sophie cried until she passed out and was taken to the hospital by Mark. When she woke up, she was much calmer. She stared quietly at the ceiling, lost in thought. After a while, she glanced at Mark, who was watching over her, and swung her legs off the hospital bed. Mark didn't move, just watched her with cold eyes. It wasn't until he saw her climbing onto the windowsill that he rushed to stop her. "What are you doing?" he yelled, grabbing her arm and throwing her back to the floor. Sophie struggled to her feet and, without a word, tried to climb back onto the windowsill. Mark, at his limit, punched her. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Sophie wiped a smear of blood from her nose, her tone matter-of-fact. "I'm going to be with Liam. He's timid. He must be so scared all by himself. You have to manage the company, so you can't go with him. It's perfect for me to go." I recoiled in shock. "Oh no, you don't. You'd be a nuisance." Mark sneered, his voice icy. "Be with him? Do you deserve to? You should live a long life and spend the rest of it atoning for what you did in misery and despair." I doubted that. Someone as fickle as her would never genuinely repent for my sake for the rest of her life. She casually buried Adrian, the man she supposedly loved so fiercely. Mark gestured to the door, calling in a few burly orderlies. "Watch her. Don't let her die." With that, he turned to leave. Before he left, he looked at Sophie and threatened, "If you die, I'll dump your ashes in a sewer so you'll never see Liam again." Sophie didn't react. I started to panic. If she was trapped here, did that mean I was too? "Mark, why would you screw over your own teammate? Orderlies can't stop someone who's determined to die." Sophie secretly saved up her sleeping pills for 2 weeks. Then, one evening, when the orderlies weren't looking, she swallowed them all. I didn't really care if she died or not. I hadn't seen any other souls this whole time. I probably wouldn't see her after she died either. But as Sophie drifted into unconsciousness, my own mind grew hazy. Time galloped past my ears like a runaway horse. The setting sun crept across desks piled high with test papers and books. I stared at the chalk-dusted podium, the sound of my classmates' chatter filling the air. "Liam!" A girl's clear voice sounded especially pleasant amidst the noise. I turned. 18-year-old Sophie, her hair slightly curled, stood there, gilded in golden light. "Liam, it really is you." Her eyes were red as she carefully took my hand and pressed it to her cheek, rubbing it gently. "Are you here to take me with you? I heard that when people die, the person they love most comes to get them." "It's true." The world suddenly fell silent. Time seemed to freeze, leaving only the sound of her rapid breathing and the beeping of some unknown machine. I tried to pull my hand away, but she gripped it tighter. "No." Sophie froze. "Why?" I laughed softly and repeated, "Why? Did my unconditional love make you forget to look in a mirror? What makes you think that after you die, I'd just forgive and forget and come to get you?" Sophie panicked. "No, Liam. I didn't know that was you next to him," she cried, tears splashing onto my hand. Disgusted, I wiped my hand on my school uniform. "Does it matter if you knew? You were the one holding him and crying, weren't you?" Sophie clutched my hand, her dark lashes trembling. "Liam, I'm sorry. It's my fault. I love you. I only want to be with you. She trailed off. "You just what?" I tilted my head, watching her quietly. "You just got bored. You just got tired of it. You just felt like life was too dull and wanted a different kind of thrill. You just thought that because I was not only your lover but also your family, I would always forgive you, always wait for you." I sighed and pried her fingers off, one by one. "Sophie, you are fundamentally a selfish person. I shouldn't have had any hope for you." Sophie squeezed her eyes shut, unable to look at me. "Liam, I'm sorry." She probably didn't remember that she was the one who confessed her love first. She said she would never leave me, no matter what. The person who once promised to love me forever ended up just saying sorry. "Liam, hit me, curse me, hate me, whatever you want. Just don't say you don't want me." I looked at her guilty, desperate face and laughed. "You know what, Sophie? After I died, my soul was stuck with you the whole time." She looked up sharply, and as if realizing something, her face turned pale. "I watched you cry your heart out for Adrian. I watched you give away my project. I watched you take him on a trip around the world. I watched you go with him to all the places I'd always wanted to go. It was disgusting. The entire time I wanted nothing more than to get away from you." She tried to hold on to me. "Liam." I shook her hand off impatiently. "That's enough. This is it. Sophie, we were a mistake from the start. Let me go." I stood up and walked toward the light. This time, Sophie didn't follow. Peace comes when you let go of what you can't change. Everything will be as it should. Just now, I think I finally figured out why I was trapped by Sophie's side. It was our engagement. I rubbed the ring on my finger. It felt hot, constricting. Why, though? She was the one who threw her ring away, but I was the one who got trapped. The diamond on my hand glittered. An image of Sophie's face, flushed and excited as she proposed to me, flashed before my eyes. Her vows echoed in my ears as if it were yesterday. I looked down and, without hesitation, took off the ring. The ring dissolved into specks of silver light. I felt a lightness I hadn't felt in a long time. My body was so buoyant I felt like I could fly at any moment. At the end of the light, I saw Adrian. He was leaning against a wall, looking at me with a complicated expression. "Why did she still choose you in the end?" he asked. I glanced at him and replied politely, "None of your damn business." Then I kept walking. From behind me came his resentful question. "You're just leaving her like this? Don't you regret it?" I didn't answer him. Regret? I was brave and sincere. I loved fiercely and hated fiercely. I did nothing wrong. I'm not the one who should have regrets. Mark's story. I can't remember which Friday night it was. I had dinner with Liam and Sophie, like we always did. And then I left. Thinking back on it now, that night we said a perfectly normal goodbye. And then I never saw him again. Sophie didn't make it. She had taken too many sleeping pills and had no will to live. And just like that, all my family was gone. In the end, I couldn't bring myself to dump her ashes in a sewer. We did grow up together, after all. So I found the place where she had buried Adrian, and I buried them together. I'm a genius. Liam's epitaph was carved just like he once said he wanted. "This planet sucks, half a star, would not recommend." I visit him every few weeks. I clean his grave and pour him some tea. Sometimes I'm in a rush from work and don't have time to brew tea, so I just pour some soda. It's the thought that counts. He can't tell the difference anyway. Recently, the cracks at the base of his headstone have filled with 4-leaf clovers. When I walk up to them, they even sway back and forth. It's just like back at the orphanage, when Liam would sit on the swing and wave and call to me from far away. 5 years after I got married, my daughter was born. She was so tiny, even smaller than Liam was when he first came to the orphanage. When the nurse handed her to me, I suddenly froze. Tears welled up in my eyes. On her shoulder was a birthmark shaped like a 4-leaf clover, gently waving at me with every breath she took. Adrian's story. The first time I saw Sophie wasn't actually at the club. It was at a corporate presentation. The three of them sat together like an inseparable trio. Sophie watched Liam with a gentle focus, without a spare glance for anyone else. He'd lift a hand, and she'd pass him water. He'd shiver, and she'd offer her jacket. I was jealous. Just then, my useless, pathetic half-sister sidled up to disgust me. "Getting into the company means nothing. Dad will never give you an important project. The family fortune is all mine. Don't even dream about it." My jealousy of Liam grew. What did it feel like to be loved so completely by someone so beautiful and attentive? So that night at the club, I took a chance. I went for it. She pushed me away, but we both knew she was hooked. The heartbroken look on Liam's face was a beautiful sight. After that, every time she saw me, she would glare daggers at me. Seeing that usually calm, composed face break into such rich expressions because of me gave me a huge sense of accomplishment. In business, we were ruthless. In private, we'd curse each other out the moment we met. When the insults got really bad, I'd grab her hair and bite her lips. She fought back just as hard. I thought I was the most special person in her life. Later, I found out I was dead wrong. That bastard Mark buried Sophie next to me. The old ghosts say that only souls without lingering attachments can be reincarnated. In very rare cases, a soul with no attachments might remain in the mortal world due to some special bond. During that time, neither humans nor other souls can see them. Liam must be one of those cases. I can't be reincarnated. I have a lingering attachment. My family didn't love me. They used me as a resource to trade for projects. The person I loved didn't love me. She used me as a toy for a cheap thrill. I want someone to love me, but that's impossible. Sophie can't be reincarnated either. She's even more pathetic. She hopes Liam will forgive her. That's even more impossible. So here we are, stuck looking at each other in mutual disgust, never to be reborn.